commissioners. May we have the roll call, please?
Present tonight is, Bob, want to turn it down a little bit? You're scaring me. Selectman Tropiano, Selectman Holmes, Selectman Tylerbaum, Selectman Slavin are present. Town Administrator Derek Sullivan is here. Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Announcements. Patrick?
I have none.
Steve? Okay. Here we go. First announcement. Any person who is on a committee, board, or commission whose term is up at the end of June, they need to send notification to the Selectman's office indicating whether they want to continue their appointment for another 3 years. Also, the chairman, if they're listening, for those particular committees, need to send a recommendation in as well. We're getting close to, and June is here in a few weeks, and July 1st is when the changeover comes, so we'd appreciate some help there. Just as an announcement for information to everybody, the Wareham Lodge of Elks, due to financial reasons, has unfortunately has had to close off the District 6 as far as using that location for elections as of July 1st. We'll have to find a new place for that. University of Massachusetts Dartmouth has a summer camp based on sustainability, July 15th to 19th. It is for middle schoolers, and it'll be again at the Dartmouth campus. And the cost is $80 a child. If you have any interest, you can contact the Selectman's office, and the paperwork will be there. Last week, Guy Campino was crediting a particular person for cleaning up around South Water Street. It turns out that the person who actually did a lot of the work was Mrs. April Ianconi, if I pronounced that right, I'm sorry. And she's the one that does most of the work, actually. Linda Jackson may help, but this Mrs. Ianconi actually is the one that does all the work. So sorry we slighted her. Wareham Summer of Celebration 2014 Committee is looking for traditional crafters to present their crafts and wares at the festivities for the reenactment of the attack of the HMS Nimrod on the town of Wareham. Crafts such as candle or soap making, quilting, wood or metalworking, or the like are asked to contact Claire Smith, 508-295-4679. Again, 508-295-4679. Also, the committee would like to announce its first fundraiser, be a gigantic yard sale on Main Street at the old Franconia Oil building near CVS. Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. The sale is June 22nd from 9 to 5 with a rain date of June 23rd. More information on how you can either rent a space or sell your own items or how to donate items to the committee. This table will be forthcoming. The Summer Celebration Committee meets the first and third Monday of each month at 3 p.m. at the Multi-Service Center. Everyone is invited to attend. Volunteers are needed to make this 2014 celebration a success. We've been notified by the university, Bridgewater State University, that they are going ahead with their graduate school internship program, with Wareham as being the first one to actually have this program initiated with. We just got notification this afternoon, and we'll hopefully start the paperwork and implementation starting on Friday and work from there. Done.
Next, please.
Citizens' participation.
Would anybody like to come forward? Mr. Barrows. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joe Barrows, 334. And the reason why I'm here is because I was told by one of the selectmen that, because I asked about that stop sign down on Chapel Road, and he said that they had nothing to do with you, the state. Well, don't you have any input? Does the state give you any input putting a sign down there? Because, boy, I'm telling you, I never saw anything so awful, not awful, in my life. There's traffic jams. I don't know. I don't know what to say, boy. It's awful.
Well,
Excuse me, because when they have that stop sign, the person stops, then he continues going. Then another one stops, but the line is backed up way up to the lights, and they cross High Street, and they won't let the people from High Street go by because they got it blocked. And of course, the law states you're not supposed to block that. If you see a car up there, you're supposed to stop and leave the room, but they don't. And then you never get a chance coming by on Wareham Street, Main Street. They don't let you go by. They keep on going. So what's going to happen? They said they're saying accidents. I think there's going to be much accidents.
this was a mysterious apparition, given that we understand the state put it up, but it's actually a town road there. Mr. Sullivan actually did a little bit of research along with Mark Gifford of Municipal Maintenance, and it was discovered that Mr. Gifford had applied for studies to be done of some intersections in town. If you look, for example, at Sandwich Road and Narrows Road now, you'll see some new striping there. I believe a depot in East Wareham was another one. I think there were 4 or 5 in all. Interestingly enough, everybody complains usually the government takes forever to study something without doing anything. In this case, they went ahead and did something. It's a matter for the road commissioners at this point I think to address it from the town side. We don't get involved in those matters anymore. Ever since town meeting took that authority away from us and created a separate board of road commissioners. But that's where it came from. The state put it up. I agree. It's a strange place for a sign, and I tremble to think what's going to happen in the wintertime there when people come over that hill and put on their brakes. It's going to be, demolition derby down there. That said, I think the road commissioners and Mr. Gifford are going to have to look into it with the state and see whether it makes sense to leave it the way it is, whether it makes sense to go back the old way, or better yet, make it a 3-way stop sign if you're going to have any stop signs there. So who knows? That's all I can tell you. I don't know if Mr. Sullivan has anything he wants to add to this, but...
They were very apologetic because they should have brought it to our attention before they enacted it. We applied for some studies, some grant studies, and after they went through, did the studies, they decided to implement, however, never alerted the local officials. So it was an oversight. They're willing to meet with us, the road commissioners and such, and I think that's what's going to happen into the future. But as for yanking the sign down right now, that's not something anybody from the municipality will do. So.
I don't mean anything about yanking the
Yeah.
I'm talking about letting the people go by High Street. They're not supposed to block the road.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Barrows. Next on the agenda, please.
I have no bills and no documents to sign. We have a hearing, so we got five minutes. We have reappointment to Community Economic Development Authority.
I don't see him here, but I certainly will more than attest to Mr. Santos. I make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Santos to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Okay. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0. Motion by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Tropiano.
Second slide.
Oh, Selectman Slavin. Okay. It was a draw. I guess it goes to you because you're the clerk.
I also don't see her here. Usually she is. Why isn't she here tonight? Where is she? I want to ask her a few questions. I would make a motion to reappoint Sandy Slavin to the Minot Forest Committee to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
3-0-1. Selectman Slavin abstaining. Motion by Selectman Holmes and seconded by Selectman Tropiano.
Open space. We Make a
Make another?
motion to,
I missed this?
for Ann Campbell,
Ah.
who's been a long-term member of the Open Space Committee, to be reappointed.
Make a motion to reappoint both Sandy Slavin and Ann Campbell to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2016 to the Open Space Committee.
Second.
You have to separate the two because I have to abstain.
Make a motion to appoint Sandy Slavin to the Open Space Committee to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Make a motion by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Motion to appoint Ann Campbell to the
3-0-1.
Open Space Committee to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Okay, motion by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Slavin. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 4-0-0.
Missed the second one, sorry, bud.
And we've got Open Space Committee, Brian Litchfield, I believe is here. Brian, why don't you come up to the table, please?
Good evening. How you doing? Well, thank you for your interest in the committee. I'll ask the other members if they have any questions for you. Brian.
Patrick?
No, I'm good.
I'm all set as well.
I'm all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank
That's
you.
all I'll say is thank you.
No questions, so, for me.
Just to ask, have you had any opportunity to attend the meetings?
Yes.
Okay. We now have on here the question of whether you're a U.S. citizen or not. That was a fun thing for one of our former members to ask, but you've taken care of that. Okay.
I
Thank
make
you
a
for your
motion to
interest.
appoint Brian to the Open Space Committee to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2016.
Second.
We got a tie for the second. Who wants it?
You can have
Selectman
it.
Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Thanks,
4-0-0.
Brian.
Congratulations.
Make sure you get sworn in, right? Don't forget that.
Yeah, you got to go to the clerk's office and raise your right hand and go through the formalities. Thanks. Anything else?
These are all, you want to boss it.
Right there.
Is this a public hearing
We've got,
or just a hearing?
we
No,
have
this is a
one
public
hearing.
hearing. It's a
We have a
shellfish
hearing,
grant.
7:15.
It's a public hearing.
I'm not sure it's a public hearing.
Do they have to give notice?
Yeah, we have a public hearing with notice.
All right, 7:15.
Well, the other way the
Somebody
notice
want
is
to open the hearing?
Take a motion to open the hearing on, in accordance with provisions of Chapter 130, Section 60 of the Massachusetts General Laws. The public hearing will be held Tuesday, May 21st, 2013, at approximately 7:15 p.m. Multi-Service Center, Selectmen's Room number 320, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on the application of transfer of grant from Keith A. Mann, 810 Head of the Bay Road, Buzzards Bay, Mass., for Shellfish Grant number 5 to Keith A. Mann and Robert Turgeon. Turgeon, sorry. That's good. I'm close. 15 Granston Way, Onset. A more particular description may be obtained in the Selectman's Office, Memorial Town Hall, 54 Marion, Wareham House.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Holmes. The hearing is now open. Oh, wait a minute. Have to have the vote.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0. Now we're open.
Keith, you want to come up also?
Yes, gentlemen, if you would come up to the table here.
Everybody's involved, might as well come to the table.
Yeah,
please.
everybody who's involved might as well come up.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay. Gentlemen, if you would tell us the status of the grant presently and what it is you're looking to do here for the public record.
Okay. My name's Keith Mann, the grant holder of grant number 5. A little bit of history on grant 5. We started shellfishing in Wareham back in the 70s on Grant 6. Grant 5 at the time was owned by Roy Ellis, who had that grant at least since Prohibition. He said that he used to get the bottles from the run runners, would drop their liquor bottles behind those rock piles back there. So I know he's had it for a long time. As a kid, I used to work with Roy Ellis on Grant 5. Scalping in the fall. I remember bitter cold weather, a young kid, his fingers going numb. More recently, in the 70s, my father purchased Grant 6 or acquired Grant 6, applied for it and received it. And later in the 80s, in Roy Ellis's older years, he actually added our name to his grant at that time. So when I came out of college and high school, I would work summers on both those grants. My father invested a tremendous amount of money into those grants. And Wareham shellfish grants, I think, are some of the most productive areas in the town for shellfish, and it's because of all the work and investment that are put into those grants. More recently, I've been involved in several other businesses, and Bob Terigny has helped out on the grant. He's put a lot of time in managing that grant, and the grant's been very productive for it. And the whole town benefits by that too, because the shellfish that are out there are propagating, they're sending larvae all throughout the town. So it's important to have the shellfish grants active and being operated. Bob's been working with me and proven that he's very effective at doing that. He's been doing a great job out there. So I'd like to add Bob Terigny's name to the shellfish grant.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
No, I'm good with this.
Good.
Just for the record, the harbor master has provided a letter to us approving of this change as well.
Yes, that is part of the packet that we have here. Perhaps it would behoove us to read that recommendation into the record, since we don't have the harbor master here for us to directly ask. If you would do so.
Will do. This was received on April 5th. Board of Selectmen from Gary Buckness, the harbor master, shellfish constable, April 5th, 2013. Regarding Keith Man Farm Shellfish Grant Number 5. I was recently notified that the leaseholder of Shellfish Grant Number 5, Fisherman's Cove, Keith Mann of Mann Farms, Inc., is requesting a change to his existing lease. Per his request, he wishes to add Robert Turgeon. Mr. Turgeon is a shareholder on the lease of Shellfish Grant Number 6, Fisherman's Cove, which abuts Mr. Mann's Shellfish Grant. I find no issue with granting Mr. Mann his request at this time. Mr. Turgeon operates one of the most productive shellfish grants in the town of Wareham. With his knowledge and expertise of the aquaculture industry, it can have many benefits to the already thriving cove. Mr. Turgeon has direct access from his waterfront property, which is located on Fisherman's Cove and is within 500 yards of said shellfish grants. My recommendation is to permit Mr. Robert Turgeon to be placed on Mr. Keith Mann's of Mann's Farms Shellfish Grant lease as joint holder until his expiration of his lease that is up for renewal in November of 2017.
Okay, thank you. I did have a question from a citizen about this. I guess the question was whether you, Mr. Mann, had been able to work this productively, I guess, in the past. I assume that you're affiliating now with Mr. Turgeon. I don't know if you have time, given your other ventures. I guess just for the record, what's prompting you to seek an affiliation or an association with the grant?
Well, I mean, our family's invested a tremendous amount of money and time in that shellfish grant, so we have been working that hard. But I do have other things going. I have several other businesses, and so it is helpful to have someone else to make sure that things being overseen and maintained and actively being managed.
I might be able to shed some light on part of the reason for this also.
Yes, if you could, please.
You may or may not know that the Division of Marine Fisheries licenses us in our business, and they require that the lessee on the shellfish grant be the only person that can make a delivery of oysters anywhere. And that creates a real problem for us. It creates a problem for us if Keith is up on the top of a 500-foot turbine waiting for them to start the windmill. And I'm sitting in the water saying, I got 20 bags of oysters over here, and they're waiting for them at the wholesalers. So this is one of the reasons why we need to do this. We need to have more than one person who can make these deliveries. It's a glitch in the system that makes it very difficult for us to work selling shellfish. Was that clear? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You deal with, obviously,
So,
a more
if my
perishable.
name- Yeah, I cannot make that delivery unless my name is actually on the shellfish list.
Right.
Or no one can make that shellfish delivery unless their name is on the shellfish grant.
And you're dealing with a particularly perishable product.
Right,
This-
especially
this-
now with disease, is illness, with raw shellfish. We have to get there quick. We have to make sure they're iced, and we try to do everything as quickly and safely as we can.
Is there anything else to be said?
I'll make the motion to go ahead and allow the.
How about we close the hearing?
Close the hearing, we got two. Okay. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, you gotta move.
It's okay.
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I'll get there eventually.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
Are we ready to go?
All right, now you can
Now
go.
we can.
Thank you, guys.
Go to town.
Thank you. I'm just trying to
Thank you.
entertain everybody. Make a motion to go ahead and change the name holder on the grant from Keith A. Mann to Keith A. Mann and Robert Turgeon.
Turigny. Yes.
I'll get there eventually.
Good job.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 400. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
now a
Thanks,
co-lessee.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Keep up the good work. Mr. Chairman, a point of information, if I might ask.
Sure.
This is the second week in a row now that we've had a public hearing, duly noted in newspapers, as this one was on May the 9th in the Wareham Week. It's been posted on our agenda, and yet you have twice now allowed private inquiries to come into a public hearing, asking people questions without knowing where the question came from. I'm not sure that that's, one, fair, or two, appropriate.
Well,
I understand tonight's question was pretty simple, but if you allow it for one, I'm not sure where that fits into. That's not public information. As part of a public hearing, I'm just questioning that. That could get out of hand in a hurry. If
Well,
you
I
read
think-
one, you have to read them all.
well, I will respond to that by saying that this was actually the only inquiry I did receive on the matter. I think as the people who conduct the hearing, award or not award, as the case may be, what the petitioners are seeking, we have some latitude and discretion in terms of what kind of input goes into it, and also in terms of our own questions. But I will certainly refer your concern to town council and get some clarification on that point. for the
Yeah, because I
future.
think if you read one, you have to read them all. You can't. It's a public hearing, and you should make known who's asking those questions. Because if someone in the audience, when you ask for or against, they have to get up and speak. They don't hide behind emails or telephone calls. You have to be present and present yourself in front of the people who are requesting the hearing. Right? You're a lawyer.
30A is a little different than court, but your
Well,
point's taken. We'll check with town
In
council.
fairness, I could send you a bunch of nasty emails, and you're going to have to read those emails without identifying the person who sent them to you, just as you just did now, and we did it again last week. All I'm saying is, I think if you keep allowing that, you're going to open the door here to something very bad.
Well, thank you. Next item, please.
Application for a one-day beer and wine from Buzzards Bay Productions, Inc., 3065 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Move approval.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah. Well, my wife has told me that she's taken and acquired an application for a seasonal, so we won't have to keep bothering you again.
If she needs help, let us know, because I believe the comment came back when she got that there was a much longer form than she was
Oh,
thought
yeah.
it would be. So
Yeah, she,
I think we're allowed to do 25 of these in a year,
25.
so we aren't there yet, but we're getting
yeah,
there.
no, we're not.
Move approval.
So you're the marketing manager now?
Second.
Is that
Yeah, yeah, I'm the go-to guy.
Good for you.
You're gonna have to.
Aren't we all, though?
Let me read it, Patrick.
All right, go ahead.
Buzzards Bay Productions, 3065 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, is
7 to midnight, 5.
it's going to be a comedy show, 5/25/13, 7 p.m. to midnight, and the address is 3065 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02553.
I incorporate that in my motion.
Second.
Okay, anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, oppose, abstain?
Good luck.
Selectman
Thank you.
Slavin, you had something to?
You want to give a little
just let,
speech and tell us what that's about?
Just
You have a lot of good stuff going on there.
Yeah, we're trying. We're trying to do all kinds of different things. Stuff for kids, stuff for adults. You guys, the last time that we did this, we did it for a burlesque show. We should have invited you to come because it turned out to be a pretty good time.
we get in trouble enough on our own.
You look pretty good in a hula skirt, don't you? Are we sitting Alan?
I got a lot of hair.
At any rate, we've been trying to do a lot of different things for a lot of different age groups. And things are starting to turn around, but it's been like a 3-year process to do this. It's been quite a while. But I don't know, it's heading in the right direction. At least I think so anyway. So hopefully it'll just continue on. But my wife and I've spent all of my retirement money to try to make this thing fly.
Well, we appreciate your efforts.
Well, a lot of the people in the town seem to enjoy themselves when they come, so, and that's a positive thing. I have gotten no negative response from anybody yet. Everybody's been pretty happy with what's going on. Adults that come to watch their kids perform, the kids themselves, they keep themselves pretty, pretty much policed. They're pretty good kids. There's a lot of good kids. More good kids than people give them credit for.
Yep.
So,
Well,
At
thank you
any
for providing an avenue for them through,
yeah, they need
Experience.
some place to do that.
yeah.
So, at any rate, this is for the adults Saturday, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Next up, we have sewer business funding for source for contract 2.
I spoke to Craig Peacock from Powers and Sullivan, and when they're going to come in to speak about the management letter and such, they're going to ask for clarification from the board as to exactly what they're looking for in that audit. Because the audit that we're requesting is, I know we're requesting for retained earnings and audit as part of that contract too. So what we're requesting is fairly lengthy and expensive. So I think we're going to need to have a little back and forth to have a true idea of what we're looking for, because we've used terms like forensic audit and such.
I don't
and
think we really want a forensic on it.
yeah, so I would ask that we set up a time to have Powers and Sullivan, Principal Jim Powers, and Craig Peacock come in here and speak to the board about it.
We've been managing this thing since back when Patrick was a selectman. And the comment we made, that's a long time, and the comment we made last week was, we're about ready to hand this entire enterprise over to a board. And every dime needs to be accounted for, everything has to be signed off. So, if it costs money, it costs money, it has to be done. Because we're not gonna turn this thing over, and this is what Mrs. Whiteside and I were alluding to last week. We're not turning this thing over, and then 3 weeks later, we hear in the newspaper how we abuse funds, and, oh, no, none of that's going on here, so.
I think
So
it would
we
be.
gotta figure out a way to pay for it, but it has to be done before we turn that over.
I think before we unleash them, we should really have them in here so that everybody
Yeah.
understands.
Whatever we gotta do, get them in,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, you're the scheduler.
Yep.
I agree.
Has
Selectman
to be
Tropiano?
done, though. There's
I
no-
agree. Let's get them in here.
There's no way around that.
Anyone have any other sewer business?
Next, please.
Mr. Newman, you're up. You're up. Get Jim the microphone.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Oh, good evening, gentlemen. You all have a copy of this letter here, I believe. I'm not going to read the letter because you all have copies of it. Well, what it is, Bob is asking for help. The same as you provided for the past 50 years or so for the veterans on Veterans Day, which I know of 10 or 15 of them I was involved with it. Bob has been, him and Sharon Boyer have been good enough to take it over for me. Since I've been in this chair, I can't get around like I used to. I can't run these guys down as quickly. And well, I'd like to also have to, so we get someone to take over Memorial Day for us. Because right now, this Memorial Day, I got planned, we got set up for, we're going to do just the cemeteries, no parades, no nothing. And I'm getting all kinds of flack from people. No parade. Don't have bodies to do it. They won't parade. Nobody to parade. What we will do is we'll start with the center cemetery with the veterans plot. We'll put a wreath down there at the flagpole, and we'll have a small ceremony, and hopefully we'll have enough some people there to do for a firing squad. We do have a bugler to play taps and whatnot. From there, we're going to head over to. We'll stop at the town green and do the sailors, soldiers, and sailors monument, plus a World War II monument that's there. We'll do the same thing. We'll place wreaths at the monuments and have a small ceremony, firing squad, taps. Then we'll head over to Agawam Cemetery and do the same thing at the flagpole. We can finish there. We go over to Onset. We do the bluffs. Then we do Dudley Brown Square. Then we take a break to have something to eat and some coffee or something. And after that coffee, we'll head down to Bessie Park, and we'll put a floating wreath in, and we'll have our ceremony, and same ceremony all over again. Then we come back up here to the town hall, and we'll have one out here at the monument out here. And if there's anybody there that wants to speak, they're going to let them speak there. As you can see, we've been kind of running our tails off all day, all morning, all day. And I plan, hopefully next year, I figure I'm just going to have one big thing right here at the town hall monument. But I'm going to need help from the board to line up some people to get in line with me, or someone else to take it over if they want. Because like I say, I'm getting up there in age and I can't run around like I used to with the wheelchair. But I'll be there to help out the best I can. And with Bob will tell you, I do make phone calls for him and help out a little bit wherever I can. I've given Bob all my contacts, and I'm always looking for more contacts. So if anybody knows anybody that wants to do something, get in touch with me, and I'll get in touch with Bob, and we'll get it set up. You can see I'm still sitting on my fanny, but I'm still doing something. I can still talk on a phone and get out there and be a pain in the butt to some people. You all know what I want to say, but I'm being polite because I was on the air.
Well,
My wife would say, since when have you been polite?
I'd like to follow up on Jim's remarks. Basically, Sharon Boyer and myself act as the agents for the Wareham Veterans Council, and Sharon and I have agreed to orchestrate Veterans Day celebration, whatever that turns out to be. Typically, or at least for the last couple of years, we've had a parade, a luncheon, and a ceremony following the parade. The town has supported that. We have a zero-based budget. Whatever we use, we get from somebody, have gotten from somebody other than the town. But the town's contributions can't go unnoticed. We've had access to 2 town buildings for our activities. The town has provided the custodial support to keep them open, clean them, and help us close them up. We've used town equipment. When I say we, I'm talking about town employees have used town equipment to set up a reviewing stand and to haul the reviewing stand around and provide other support. If we'd asked for it, we'd had a PA system, but normally our PA system comes from Steve Ruiz. We've had use of the police to control traffic. They've managed to do it during their normal shift. So we haven't been forced to come up with police detail money. If that were the case, there wouldn't be any police detail money because we've got none. We've had EMC or EMS support with Dave Evans and the ambulance service. And there've been a number of volunteer town employees who have volunteered or who have been paid to be present on that day and facilitate the operation. And we've had some administrative support from the Selectmen's office or from the town administrator's office in terms of inviting the appropriate guests. All of those things cost some degree of money, either in holiday pay or some other way. Before Sharon and I start to really get serious about this year's Veterans Day celebration, we need to know to what extent we're going to be able to continue the same events or modify our plans. So I think the basis for Jim's letter was to announce that we're trying to get started and that we need to confirm the level of support that we're going to be able to get this year. We recognize that this year and perhaps next year are going to be unique in the lack of money that we have to deal with on a town basis, and so we don't want to overextend ourselves or anticipate the town is going to overextend itself. So I'm bringing the case with Jim to you so that that can be discussed with yourselves and the town administrator. We don't need to hear the discussion here, but give you some time to consider it.
Thank you, Bob. Selectman Slavin?
Bob, can you possibly put together a list of each part of the function overall that you want to do and supply that to the town administrator? So that way we can figure out what the workload is, what the bodies are, what the assets are you need. Because obviously the 2014 budget is just about finalized and done. And there's not much we can do there, but we know what you're at also. If you're going to try and do any fundraising, et cetera, we can figure out from there. So we have some idea what we're really looking at.
As a town committee, we really didn't, because we're agents for the Veterans Council,
Right.
we really didn't feel like we were empowered to go out and fundraise. There isn't a friends of the Wareham Veterans Council that can go out and raise money. And I got the impression and had the feeling that it was inappropriate for a town committee to go out and raise its own money. A town committee.
Well, again, you can kind of reach out and have someone else do the work for you. Separate. If you do. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. But
Yeah.
what we need really is we need to have some idea of
Certainly can
each
provide
piece,
you a list.
each piece of what you'd like to do. There's an old way of doing things. You can always ask for more than you get, but if you don't ask, you don't get anything. So I would put out what you'd like to do, and then we can figure out how much we can achieve with that.
Okay,
That's
fine.
That way we can strive to make it where you want it to be.
And if you would like, what you can do, Bob, is submit that. We can get it on an agenda and discuss it in the future, so that you keep the process going here rather
Sure.
than just come here and then wait 2 months, nothing happens, and you're no better off. I know you won't let that happen, so, and neither will you, Jim.
In any case, I want to be sure that Jim had a chance to, and I had a chance to bring this forward because there were costs that didn't have a dollar attached to them at the time. They just happened. Well,
Yeah.
there's always money behind that happening.
No, we appreciate your foresight in coming to us this early.
Thank you.
We've done it all these years without any budget. Our budget is going out and begging and borrow wherever we can.
We've become better at that, too. Thank you.
Veterans, if you will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, next, please.
We have a presentation by Johanna Rowley, Boston Architects College. Oh, he's something else. Don't worry.
Oh boy, here we go. Just can't stop selling.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you. It's been a while, hasn't it? Since February?
I was gonna say 3 months. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get started, shall we?
Just to remind you, these microphones, you've got to get to within about where you are now in order to be really heard out there in the TV land.
You got it.
Thanks.
How's that? Great. Well, good evening. My name is Johanna Rowley, and I work for the Boston Architectural College, and I'm also a local resident here of Wareham, and have a small design business that I do preservation and commercial work, that sort of thing. This past year, I came before the board and presented some ideas that the students and I had, and I had asked for approval for several different things. And one of the things we talked about was Tremont Nail. We're trying to assist the town and the Historic Commission in developing documentation and ideas in order to hopefully find some alternatives for Tremont. So some of the things that we came and asked for approval on was to provide a nomination, which we did submit. Unfortunately, we did not get this. This is a national nomination, and we competed against hundreds of nominations. And it's not typically a grant, so it's not on a points basis. And I was told it was a very strong nomination. It just didn't make the final cut. However, the project is going to be in the Preservation Magazine for summer. I was interviewed by the staff at Preservation Magazine, so Tremont Nail will be in Preservation Magazine, which is very exciting. So we are getting some national attention for the project. One of the other things I did do was put a grant together for 80 Makepeace. Now again, this is a very competitive grant, and unfortunately we did not receive the grant. However, I'm pleased to see that the money did go to some very worthy causes here in town. So as a resident, I'm thrilled that those organizations did get that money. So we're just going to keep going for other grants. Some of the other things that happened was we were in the Wareham Week, and we also worked with Kelly Streeter at Vertical Access. She does preservation documentation, and she actually came down to Tremont to show students how to use certain technology with AutoCAD to document things, and she actually talked about us in her blog. So that was very exciting. One of the other things that we're also working on, which was approved, is a conservation maintenance plan. And we have completed this for the shed and the restroom and the office building. And we are going to be submitting this to the Conservation Department and Commission for review. We'll also be putting together paperwork so that we follow the conservation process, so that in the future we can have volunteers come and clean up the site. This basically shows us, you know, here's the shed building, this is what it looks like, and then we've documented, for instance, with a photograph, what the issue is and how we're going to resolve it. So it's a report that Dave Pichette and I can use in the future. One of the other things that we also talked about is we have been doing as-built drawings this semester down at the site, and that's going very well, but it's going slowly because we are literally drawing everything we can see. And so this is, as you can see, this is a floor plan of the shed building, and this is an elevation here and here and here. This is a section, and this is a detail of one of the barn doors. So this is just a very small piece of what we're doing. At the end, we're going to have a complete set of as-built drawings that we can use for future reference. Okay, so the issues at hand. These are the things that we began doing last year. Well, the students and I worked on a challenge statement, problem statement, and what we came up with is how can the Tremont Nail Factory District be redeveloped to address the needs of the Wareham community while preserving the integrity of the structures and buildings as well as conserving the habitats of the site. And I'm hoping that this is a strong and broad enough statement that people will hopefully agree and embrace with this. I know this is a very sticky subject, but we have reasons for making this statement. So if this is our statement here, and ultimately we would like to have a developer have an RFP, or we end up doing a demolition, there are some things that have to happen first before that can actually go through. And I'm presenting this not only to you, the Board of Selectmen, but to the public as well, so the public really understands what we have to accomplish. One of the things we have to do is what we call a historic preservation restriction or an easement. The second thing that we have to do is the inclusion of the Parker Mills Historic District. And then thirdly, the Mass Department of Environmental Protection 21E form. Now, these two pieces, in order to get them accomplished, we have to continue doing the as-built drawings and the assessment reports, the inventory forms, and the photography, and that's what the students and I are doing right now. This is considered precedence, and it's backup for these two pieces. And then there is a grant submittal going through the Wareham CETA that is working on the 21E at this point. Now, one of the things we did look at is demolition an option? Well, yes. If we would not be responsible if we didn't look at this as an option. However, we don't think this is the best option. And the reason being is, as you can see here, I've drawn a red line around the area of the property that most realistically could be redeveloped if all these buildings were raised. And this is based off of feasibility studies, civil engineering, all the studies that have been done up to this point. The town will actually lose valuable potential tax revenue. Okay. The other thing too is if you do want to redevelop this area, the code restrictions are going to be more stringent. Your building restrictions are going to be more stringent versus if we keep the building, we actually have some flexibility there with the 2009 existing building code, and I've confirmed that the building department does use the 8th edition, so there is some flexibility there. We could also lose the integral part of Wareham's historic and cultural identity, and even if we do raise these buildings, we still have to deal with the dam, which is a major issue. So keeping the site. Here are some positives of keeping the site. The whole site at this point can be redeveloped. You can gain valuable tax revenue. The owner receives a sizable tax credit from various sources, which I will talk about. The building conservation code, zoning would all be based on town bylaws and the 2009 existing building code. And one of the things that we did find is if we do work with the existing building code, there is a specific call out that says that it gives exception to historic properties within a floodplain. So for instance, if you are within a historic district, if you are listed in the National Register and you're listed in the state and local registers, there are exceptions. And so there will be flexibilities in how we redevelop the buildings. that's a positive because that's a big issue with the FEMA floodplains. And then we would also keep the historic and cultural identity. So just quickly, what is an HPR and easement? And this is for the folks who really are not familiar with this. This is a voluntary legal written agreement. It's typically a deed that permanently protects a significant historic property. It describes the permanent exterior and exterior restrictions put on the property, and it applies to both the current owners and future owners. Who's responsible? Well, at this point, the Community Preservation Committee, Historic Commission, and Historic District Commission are working on this. And why do we need to do this? Well, when we purchased Tremont Nail Factory with community preservation funds, the town is required to have an HPR written, and it has to be submitted to the SHPO or the State Historic Preservation Office. This is something that is required. So we can't get an out on this one. We have to do it. One of the other things that we're looking at is putting the Tremont Nail Factory District within the Parker Mills Historic District. A historic district protects historic structures within its boundaries. The Wareham Historic District Commission and Historic Commission are working on this. And the inclusion within a district would allow tax credits, federal tax credits, as well as state and federal grants. It opens us up for some more help because you do typically need to be within a historic district in order to get the tax credits. It's kind of one of the criteria. There's also redevelopment incentive, and it can stabilize or increase property values, and it also allows more flexibility in the building code. And then the 21E. The 21E is an environmental site assessment. It's usually done when there's a real estate transfer. It's designed to regulate and promote oil and hazardous material cleanup in the soil and groundwater within Massachusetts. And it's typically enforced by the local Conservation Commission Department and Mass DEP. Who's working on this? Well, CETA is currently working on the grant. And why do we need this? Well, Tremont Nail was previously identified as having oil and hazardous material in the soil and groundwater. And this has to be completed in order to sell the property to a developer. Now, we did do some research. And there was some extensive work done on the site from 1989 to 2000. Reports do exist, and they are located at this website, and this is the RN number. And that is the address that's listed, and it's named Tremont Nail Company. And all of these reports were either done by Mrs. Kenyon hired someone to do these reports, or May's Company. And there's 19 reports, PDF files. And it lists all the types of labs and research they all did and the type of remediation they did of the soil. So that's very helpful. But the 21E still needs to happen in order to transfer the property to someone else. Okay, so based off of the Tremont Nail Challenge and objective, we figured out that we have 4 preservation options. We've got rehabilitation, restoration, reconstruction, and restoration reconstruction. On another layer, we've also got multiple occupancy and zoning opportunities. And we are within the Wareham Village 1 district. And we've also got 4 sustainable options of looking at solar, water, geothermal, and wind power. Now quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but a lot of folks don't know what preservation terminology is. And what I want to just quickly go through is, first of all, preservation is what Tremont Nail is currently at. This is what its status is. And it refers to the maintenance of a property without significant alteration to its current condition. We're trying to keep things status quo at this point. And I've got some pictures here of the fish market in Seattle where it's just standard. A lot of changes haven't been made. Rehabilitation, on the other hand, is the most flexible strategy which preserves those portions or features that convey the structure's historical, cultural or architectural values while making compatible use of the property. Buildings are repaired, maybe altered, or have an addition built. This is also called adaptive reuse. And a building that this was done to was the Frisk Museum in Nashville. This originally was a post office, and they've made it a fabulous museum there now. Restoration is a third process, and this is returning a building to its condition at a specific time period, often to its original condition. And this intervention is appropriate when portions of a structure's historic integrity are lost, or its importance at a particular historic time period is particularly significant. And this is an example of the Davenport Hotel in Spokane, which just recently got restored, and the interiors are just phenomenal. Beautiful. And then reconstruction, and this is the process of rebuilding a structure. This is the intervention used when a historic structure needs to be physically in place for contextual reasons, even though it no longer exists. And this is the governor's mansion in Williamsburg, Virginia. It originally burned years ago, but they were able to reconstruct it based off of these Baudelaire plates that they found over in England. And so sometimes you do need to reconstruct buildings in order, especially if you're using it as museum quality, to get the understanding across. And then finally, conservation, and this is what the students and I are doing right now. We're preserving specific materials. This includes examination, documentation, treatment, and preventive care. You can see our students, they're actually field measuring right here. And this is some work that was done last year on the roof at, I think it was the main factory building. So now that we understand that, we spent time looking at all the buildings on the site. And we determined that all of the buildings could potentially be rehabbed, which is the most flexible. One of the other options that we looked at was the oldest buildings, which is the office building, the main factory building, and the freight building. Those are circa about 1848. Those potentially could be restored to original conditions under certain options. A third is a restoration / reconstruction for the office building and the main factory. And the reason why we decided that was there was an original addition where the foundation still exists on the office building that no longer is there. If under certain conditions we wanted to restore that and take the addition that was built in the 1970s down, that could be an option. Also, with the main factory building, when we're talking about reconstruction there, on the east side of the building, there's a one-story addition, and that's where the paddle wheel went. If we were really thinking about having the main factory as a museum or something, we would probably restore that if we wanted to. And finally, down here, we've got this little shed building. We found out that this is not the original location of this building, that sometime during one of the main hurricanes in either in the 1930s or, well, it would have to be the 1950s, it floated off to that location, so we don't know where it came from. So this actually would be considered a reconstruction, if we wanted to move it to its original site, although, frankly, where it's located right now is a pretty good location. So preservation tax credits. We have some really interesting things going on here. Rehabilitation, restoration, and reconstruction, they all fall under the same IRS rules. The National Park Services offers 20% federal income tax credits to income-producing properties. So that's 20% that a potential owner could use. And then the Mass Historic Commission has a rehabilitation tax credit program for 20%. And then the Community Preservation Act has a 10% state income tax credit. And there are 4 categories that you could potentially get 10% each on. And that would be historic preservation, open space, outdoor recreation, and community housing. And if the site manages to incorporate all 4 of those categories, you could get total state income of 40%. That's just on, I mean, historic and recreation alone. So zoning occupancy types. We looked at initially the IBC International Building Code because they have occupancy types, but Wareham has put together their own zoning and what types can be put on the Wareham Village 1 site. And the Wareham Village 1 district is intended to promote business and residential development in Wareham Village that provides stable income economic base, protects the village's historic buildings, fosters reuse of the existing buildings, and promotes visual connections to the waterfront. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of an idea of what you're looking for. So here we are here. This is where we're located, and this is the Tremont site. Well, we did some investigation, and according to the assessor's map, the site is called industrial, which is kind of important because that determines it will have to do with the building code in the future. And so there are some questions there that I would need to ask the building inspector for flexibility and understanding how we can change occupancies. One of the other things we found out is we found out what cannot go on the site, which you might want to think about, because at this stage I don't think anything's closed for discussion. So obviously all industrial uses, all transportation uses. This is really interesting because a while back there was discussion about maybe having Tremont be a transportation center. Well, according to, and I've got it right here, the zoning information, public transportation, passenger station, trucking and transportation terminals are not allowed at the site at all. So it's not even a discussion point. Most public utilities. Yeah.
Sure, we changed through town meeting through an amendment in the zoning bylaw.
It's, yes.
I would suggest contacting Serped. Actually, Louise Hardeman, actually a Wareham resident, is involved with transportation at Serped.
Okay.
Because Serped did do a study of using Tremont Hill as intermodal center.
Okay, well, according to our zoning bylaws, that's not allowed, so.
That's why it'd be good to see what they came up with, because
Okay.
they should have picked that up.
Mr. Chairman,
hope
again,
our,
I asked the question again. It can be allowed.
It can be allowed, but we need to have it changed.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was the question.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
So it can be allowed. So stop saying it can't be allowed.
Well,
it
right
can be
now,
allowed,
it can't be allowed.
but it can be
needs
allowed
to be changed.
with a zoning change.
Right.
Yes.
Under the current zoning laws, we can't, but
Correct.
that doesn't mean we can't
That
change
wasn't
them.
my
Right.
question.
We
Right.
can change them.
Right. Also, recreational uses, food and beverage services, and accessory uses related to permitted recreational activities or related to permitted motels, hotels, or conference centers. Also, hospital, filling station, conference center, motel, hotel, guest house, and commercial recreational facilities. All of those are not allowed currently. However, if we feel that they are important enough to have a discussion, we want to change the zoning.
And the reason
The
I
opportunity is
ask
there.
that is because every idea that's been sent to me or given to me is on that list that you can't do, from a kayak launch to a restaurant on a cafe on the river to on the creek, to everything that's ever been recommended for this place on that list you can't do. Right?
So there is some
Today
today.
is the key point.
So that's why I'm bringing it up. I thought it was very interesting and thought it's an opportunity because I think nothing should be taken off the table at this point.
Even as recent as Friday afternoon, I had a conversation. Friday afternoon, I had a conversation with Smiling Sal, Mr. Pena, and we were debating over transportation, recreation, and revenue generating facility, right? And he's oh, you know, we could have concerts there, and we can't. But according to that, recreational activities would be a concert, wouldn't
Well, for food and beverage services for recreational
it? Right.
is not allowed, which is kind of bizarre to me, but
It is.
that's the way it's written.
Yeah.
So there should be some discussion there.
Or commercial recreation facility, right?
Yeah.
That's
But
really.
then there
I'm
are
glad
other-
you put that up there though, because I bet you a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people are not aware of that.
But then there are other recreational. It's odd the way it's written, and so
Right.
I think someone has to go through the entire list to really have an understanding of what these things mean. So anyway, so we did an example. We did a case study, just so that you can understand how we're thinking about this. We were looking at the office building. So the rehabilitation would probably be the easiest to reuse as is. Now, it's considered industrial. However, this building was never an industrial building. It was an office building. So I need clarification from someone, even though its occupancy type is listed as industrial, common sense tells me this is an office building, should be used as an office building if we're going to just reuse it as is. If we want to restore it as is and remove the back addition. Or if we want to do a restoration reconstruction, restore it as is, remove the back addition, and reconstruct the original side addition. And the 2009 existing building code will be the most flexible. As far as accessibility, we would have to work with the building inspector, but there are some flexibilities there that would make it easier. We also looked at some of the other types of things that could go into this building based off of zoning and based off of square footage. And we looked at residents with home office. Now, some of these things are going to be a little off the wall, but at this stage, we don't care. Daycare center, educational use, religious use, oceanographic and engineering research, bank, retail, motor vehicle service and sales, dry cleaning, laundromat, B&B, which is allowed, but a hotel, motel, guest house is not. Convenience store, restaurant, nonprofit, recreation, retail, sale of marine equipment and supplies. So we have a lot of options here for one building. And we've pretty much gone through this for every building on the property based off of square footage. So we just want to let you know that we have been thinking about this, okay? All right, sustainable options. This is also, I think, inherently a part of the property. There are several options, and depending on occupancy type, power can be calculated, and appropriate sustainable options can be matched to the needs of the site. In order to calculate that baseline, the utility bills are used. Now, we did receive electrical bills from 2010 until current, but which is great as a start, but it doesn't get us where we need to be for an absolute baseline, because we have to know what the total bills were when it was in use. So I'm working with folks on this one. I think it's going to take a little while to find all the paperwork, but if we really want to understand what that baseline is, we need to do this. So one of the things we did was a sun study. Because we wanted to understand, I mean, it's a no-brainer, but when you see a visual, you can kind of see this. You can see where the sun is during the summer. And it hits the site pretty much all day. And we're thinking, you know, could photovoltaic panels be used on some of the building roofs? We're thinking the warehouse building, if it were redone somehow, the office building, or even maybe the main factory, although that roof line is I think that would be a little bit of a challenge. But that certainly could be something we think about, and we would calculate that. Yes.
So they would allow that?
If it were
hang on a second. You take a historic building, right? I'm following you along here, but this is a great question. I
Mm-hmm.
think. So you take this historic building, the historic district commissions and all these folks, right? They all get on top of you,
Mm.
and then it's got to be historic restoration, but you can put a solar panel on top of it.
If it were a restoration, probably not. But if it's a rehabilitation,
You can't.
there's some leeway there.
Leeway.
It's all in which option you choose and where they get placed.
Right. Yeah, because obviously there are no solar panels.
Right. So it's something to think about at this point.
There'd be one problem though, in that if that gets put into a historic district, then the Historic District Commission, anything that's visible from the street, they have jurisdiction over.
And again, I think
I understand what she's.
Yeah.
She's creating the juices, which is
I'm
good.
I'm trying
Right.
to get people to start thinking about this as a very holistic thing.
Right.
Because one of the thoughts that we had as a group was, what if we could make this site more self-sustaining as far as energy costs? Now, I know that there's a lot of discussion about that around here, but I've seen a lot of this work in various capacities, so I know some things are realistic. It's just about, okay, what kind of costs, what kind of tax credits can you get? One of the other things we talked about too was water power. Now, this is the most logical source, but
Water does flow there.
yeah, it does. Well, I mean, we have to consider the tides, which comes every day, and we also have to consider that the water is also used year-round by cranberry bog owners for flooding their bogs. So we don't have a consistent flow from the mill pond and the Wankinko. So we have to consider that into the calculation. Now, one of the things we could think about was a water wheel. If, maybe that is a possibility, but more research would have to be done in order to see if it could actually work.
So you get two issues. You get the bottom half with the title,
Yep.
and the top half with the cranberries.
But see, that's what makes it so fun.
Right.
This
Oh,
is a
no, I'm
puzzle.
with you.
This is great. And then
I'm with you.
geothermal, which is already at the site. It's kind of oddly placed. You can barely see the pipe here, but it exists. In geothermal, I would love to do more research to find out, what kind of tanks we could put in, just what kind of options do we have there?
Because, not a week goes by where somebody doesn't stop you. At least I know Patrick's mentioned it quite a few times. That we spent all this money on this piece of property, and it's just like a hole.
Yeah.
And money just keeps going in and in and in. So we were hoping that with the CETA study, once we got that back, combined with your efforts, that we'd be able to put something together here and start to see some return on that investment. at some
Exactly, and I'm begging the indulgence of the people who are appearing after you on the agenda here, because this has been a lengthy presentation.
I'm
but
sorry.
They need to understand that this was something we spent
This is
seven
big.
figures on.
This
It's
is
been a
big.
white elephant for 10 years, and you're looking at turning it into a cash cow, and this is a critical piece of our town's development, so it's
No.
worth the time.
Okay.
No.
So bear with us, please. This is important. Thanks.
Okay, so the red X. We don't want these type of wind turbines. That's not what we're thinking about when we're
Mr.
saying
Meehan
wind.
still here?
I'm sorry.
Better watch out.
I'm so sorry. But what we're thinking about, we're in a category 3 here, Wareham is, which means that we're kind of right smack dab in the middle. We're not sure if we could get the consistent wind power that we would like, especially if we wanted to do something like this, which is more in keeping with the aesthetics of the property. And again, this is just thoughts that we're thinking about. We certainly don't think this is very appropriate for the site. We want to make sure that you know that.
Did you say that the other type? Did you say class 3 was enough or not enough? Or
It's
you
the
were-
minimum standard to get some wind power, but because of where we're located, there's a lot of calculations that go into determining that, and it's not just one thing. And
Okay.
we would really need to be able
'Cause
to
that's pretty
understand
cool, too.
how much we could get out of it. So again, something else we can look at. So sustainable tax options with geothermal, this can be combined with solar and wind. There's a 10% of total system cost, no limit to the total credit amount. There's also a 10% grant available in lieu of a tax credit. It can be used in more than 1 year, and can used to offset AMT tax. And we need to determine the condition of the system and eligibility for reuse. Now, some other things to consider is micro wind initiative. Now, this is a public project, so we would get $5.20 per watt maximum, which is 130,000. And then feasibility study grants we could look at. We also have an opportunity for solar here, which is 40 cents per watt. And then we also add on to that 5 cents per watt for the Massachusetts company components and $1 per watt for natural disaster relief. And then we also have Energy Star incentives. So we have some tax credits here that if you consider that, plus historic preservation, I haven't even included transportation, and there are some other types out there that whoever gets this property could really save some income. So it's something, and we should be throwing that out there when we do get a developer RFP of what kind of opportunities are there. This is a positive, I think.
Mr. Chairman, it's a great positive story, I think, that you're telling, right? And there are a couple of parts that, again, you know, the zoning issue, we can obviously work on that. And this issue of mentioning this developer, it's also part of our conversation the other day, was that, you know, there are some projects, I think, where a developer isn't going to do this unless they're going to make money.
Right.
Right? We're a town that needs revenue. We've made the investment, and I'm not quite so sure that in this project that we may hire somebody to work for us to develop.
Yes.
But I'm thinking that this is more of a CETA management, economic development project being managed, right? As opposed to paying some developer or letting some developer buy that and do what they want. Because this has got long-term revenue enhancements to it that the town needs to benefit from. We're the ones who stuck it out. And in the end, to turn around and give that to somebody else and let them make the money, well, I'm sure we'll get some tax money, but we want revenue. We need revenue in town,
Yes.
not just a tax payment, right?
Yes, we do.
And there are many years of tax credits here that we won't see, right? So when we get to that point, I think in terms of the developer, we should be
The developer.
probably through CEDAR or some board or something
not so sure
managing
of
that.
I'm not so sure of that. The
Well-
tax credits don't help us at all. As a municipality, they mean nothing to us. They only mean it to a developer who can get the tax credits and offset some of his costs for the repairs. So I'm not so sure of that. For discussion, absolutely. No, but, you know, by and large, municipalities and government are not very good at managing these types of things. And that's why it's always better to have an outside concern.
Well, this is something that I think
I mean, I'd
certainly
like
is
to see
worthy
the-
of a lot further discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd
Maybe
like
a
to see
Saturday
that.
workshop or something to get citizen ideas, to get feedback.
I mean,
Once we figure,
obviously, we want to maximize what the town's income would be from the property. But I'm not so sure we want to manage the property.
Okay, great. And so next steps, this is my last slide. There are some things that I am looking for approval on. First of all, work with the building, EMS, fire, and police departments to gain approval to have the tour of the Tremont, Maine factory building during the 2014 War of 1812 celebration. So I would like to get approval to keep working on that. Also develop a signage, wayfinding package, and design museum-type display units for the Tremont Nail Factory District, which can be used for the celebration in future. And then work with the Historic Commission, District Commission, and the CPC to coordinate the paperwork for backup that they need for their historic district nomination and the easement. Develop volunteer experience, and then research potential of video, interviews, documentary, book options to be used for historical documentation and marketing purposes, and then to continue developing a relationship with the Wareham School Committee to develop future curriculum and any type of, the school and I are moving forward with some design studios this next fall and next year to continue with design work.
Selectman Slavin?
Not yet. A second for discussion. Basically, the first couple of pieces there, Joanna, probably be best worked with you hooking up with the Celebration 2014 committee, because what you have listed there are things they were talking about.
Yep.
And they're working, they'll be presenting here on the 28th, and they're going to come to the town and ask what the town can do to help for that 2014 celebration.
Got it.
And these things just overlap each other so much, so I don't think it's a necessity for the Board of Selectmen at this point.
Okay.
It's more the town administrator. Item number 3, you don't need our approval there. It's
Okay.
if the two commissions and CPC want help from you, they
Okay.
have perfect right to ask for it.
Okay.
You
Great.
know, it's the only time they get into trouble is if they have to pay for something. I know, but I'm just
I'm
wanna
just
explain how it's really going to work. The as far as, again, the same thing for the historic district, the volunteer experience. There's no problem there. You have to just go through the town administrator, make sure we're covered for any liabilities. I would suggest getting a hold of Gary Driscoll. He's got 3 to 4 generations of family that worked. He works for Acorn, which is the company that bought Tremont from Kenyon. And Gary was going to work on finding people going back as far as possible, do video interviews. With the concept idea was that when we got inside clean enough, that with some of the pieces put in place,
sure.
and we get all of the code violations that we have that we'd get rid of, that we would actually have places we'd stop at a piece of machinery. It would have a video there explaining the machinery,
Right.
and then someone who worked on it would actually explain what he did and actually show what it was and go back and have some history. So these are all things that are kind of in place already. So we can go ahead and approve, go ahead and doing it all. But you've actually got people you can actually get some work done very quickly.
Okay, great.
So I have no problem at all with it.
Any questions? I know I need to wrap things up.
Well, we have a motion of support, I guess is what you'd call it, before us, so I think we need to vote that first. Is there anything else to be said on Selectman Holmes' motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0.
Good,
Thank you very much. The only...
Thank you.
Yes, very nice. Thank you. And,
Thank
and
you.
obviously a lot of work went into this, and thank you for doing that. We're very appreciative that, again, somebody's come forward with some thoughts about how to turn our white elephant into a cash cow.
Great, thank you.
I would only hope that next summer's War of 1812 celebration isn't so realistic as to burn the place down all over again.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Thank you.
No. Why don't we take a 5-minute break until she gets cleaned up? Yes.
Oh, by the way, you brought students with you tonight, but why don't you have them step up and introduce themselves and take a couple of seconds explaining what they did.
Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I should have thought of that earlier. Should have all been sitting up there with her.
My name is Gregory Lent. I was part of the project here. What I specifically worked on, what you saw that I worked on was the wind and the solar studies. The little animations that were up there, I put those together, and I did the work on that. I did a lot of coordinating, a lot of the writing of the reports and things that went into it as well. But
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And you?
no, I'm not with it.
Oh, you're not with it. Okay. That is a compliment to your youthful looks. I hope you keep them for a long time.
That's all mine too.
Next item, please.
MBTA and MassDOT Cape Flyer.
Again, gentlemen, thank you for your indulgence, but as we heard, this was something we purchased, I want to say, 10 years ago?
2004.
9 years ago. It's been sitting there empty. It's cost the town something in the realm of 1.2 or 1.3 million, depending on whose math you accept. And we're finally getting somebody interested in converting it to use. Unfortunately, as you heard, we can't turn it into a railway station for you guys just yet.
It did have a railway siding at one time. I've seen the remnants of it.
Yes, there was.
My name is Brian Maroney. I work for Jacobs Engineering, representing MassDOT Rail Division. This is Steve Culp, who works for the MBTA System Safety. He's a deputy director. We are here tonight to answer any questions you may have. We were asked to come. I can address any infrastructure questions that you have. The MBTA has conducted a safety assessment of the crossings. Steve can answer any questions you have relative to that safety assessment.
Okay, well, thank you. Why don't we start with you, Selectman Tropiano?
There's so much information going around about the flyer, and it's going to be, 59 miles an hour heading through town. And I think people are concerned at the rate and speed that the thing goes through the town, that it may cause some issues for people crossing the tracks, people doing what they have been doing for years without any worry. I mean, the most we ever have is a couple of trash trains go down there twice a day, I think we have trash trains. That's about it that's ever gone down the line. Now we'll be talking about a train that's traveling at quite a bit of speed. I think what the citizens want to know and what we want to know is how we're going to protect the citizens from any issues relevant to the speed of this train.
I can address a little bit of the issue. Number one, MassDOT property is private property. It's state-owned property. People on that property are considered trespassing. And just to put everybody on notice there, and I only know this because I just finished up with the Middleborough Selectmen the night before. There's active stuff going on with the chief of police between the MBTA Transit Police and the towns of Middleborough, Wareham, and the various Rochester relative to trespassing on the MassDOT right away. Let me clarify something infrastructure-wise relative to speed. The line in general is going on north of the Buzzards Bay Bridge is going to be raised to 55 miles an hour. However, within that area, there are certain areas that are not going to be raised, specifically here in Wareham. The curve at Elm Street, my understanding is at this point in time, the curve at Elm Street, it will slow from 55 down to 45, and then just before Wareham Station, it will be 30 miles an hour through the Wareham Station, across the bridge, across the Route 6 crossing, Sandwich Road crossing, Narrows Road crossing, and then we'll pick back up again to 55 somewhere in the curve south of there. There has been, as I imagine you've seen all the machines flying around, there's been a tremendous number of track work done, grade crossings replaced. There was some work done right on Sandwich Road yesterday or the day before. Mass Highway has stepped into the mix and offered some assistance in terms of the pavement markings at the various crossings have all been refreshed on the north side, which you've probably seen those crews floating around as well. Approximately 42,000 ties across the entire line all the way to Hyannis have gone in. Signage is being updated as well. The line at one time historically, I don't know if you remember, the line was previously run as a passenger line at 60 miles an hour. So what this project is doing is basically restoring that line to the previous speed that it went. Now, specifically through Wareham Station, I don't think it went that speed. But
It used to stop in Wareham Station.
There was a station.
That was an old train station that we got from
New Haven Railroad.
New Haven Railway.
So the town owns the station?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it used to stop there.
Okay.
And stopping is a big difference than flying through there, you know.
It was hard, a couple of weeks ago, they were still working out the schedules and how things were going to go. I did ask the question before coming to the meeting tonight, specifically because I knew you guys were going to ask, what is the speed through the station area? And as of right now, from what I'm being told, that speed will be 30 miles an hour across that sensitive area.
Selectman Holmes?
Thank you, Jim. And yeah, I take a different approach than my friend. I travel on the Acela quite a bit, so I enjoy speeds greater than 60 miles an hour. When you get on a train, you want to go somewhere. I've noticed all the work, and I think that I trust in the work that you do and that you're making those tracks safe. 60 miles an hour isn't very fast. I don't think we need to protect people from the train. The train's not going to come off the track and drive down Main Street. When people see a red light and that arm comes down, they need to stop. It has nothing to do with the speed of the train. That's a vehicle law in Massachusetts. The red lights blink, you stop your car. The arm comes down, you stop your car. Whether that train's going 5 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour, doesn't matter. That's the law. You stop your car. You do need to deal with people on those tracks, and you apparently have satisfied that issue that you're working with the police department to enforce, again, laws that are on the books about trespassing. So, listen, any activity is welcomed. I don't believe the town is not supportive of this beginning process of an extension. Many of us are very supportive of it. But to blame the train because somebody goes through the red light or they're not used to seeing a train come by, that's not, I don't think that rises to the level of danger. People crossing the tracks, though, I have experience with this. The train, as you see the schedule, only one would be going by at a time, correct?
Correct.
Is that,
Yes.
there won't be any crossover, north-south, east-west type
There
thing?
are two designated passing sidings, but my understanding is, in order for those trains to pass, one train will be put in the siding, stopped, and parked before the other train passes. So there are two sidings. One is at Buttermilk, which is just north of the Cohasset Narrows Bridge, and the other one is at West Barnstable, which is down right there to the left off of Route 149.
Yeah, because I have witnessed that, actually, in Carroll, Iowa, where the two trains were coming at the same time. Mm-hmm. And this elderly woman was getting ready to cross. So, the train goes by. She's probably about 85 years old. She starts to cross, and the other train came and nailed her.
Neither of the passing...
and that's why I asked you that question, because, there are people who may have an issue, to my friend's comments about walking across a train track. And as long as there's no trains coming at the same time, I don't think we'll have that issue.
Neither of the passing sidings have grade crossings in them.
Okay.
They're both off to the side. Sorry.
Thank you.
Selectman Slavin?
I have several questions. First off, Mass Coastal was running their freight and the trains up there. Are you leasing the tracks from them? Because you said it's an MBTA.
MassDOT Rail Division is the owner of the right-of-way. Mass Coastal Railway is a contract operator and maintainer of the line. That's part of their licensing and operating agreement. They run it, they dispatch it, and they maintain it.
Okay. We have in Wareham, as you know, the station, which was given to the town back in 1954. The one issue I think what they're referring to is we have a lot of people who do crab fishing on the other side of the bridge there and along the tracks. And I'm not concerned about the train. I'm concerned about protecting people from themselves, because that's really the issue. There's no fence. There's nothing there right now. There's some pieces when they gave us the building, we had to maintain at least a 1,500 square foot building at that site for transportation use. I don't know if there's any gates or any fencing required, but there is a real problem with people just going over there all the time, sitting there fishing, especially on weekends. You see families everywhere. Even at 30 miles an hour, it's still going to be, it can be an issue. I'm just concerned because if you're speaking to our police department, who's paying for our police department to sit there and regulate all this and enforce everything where it's not been done before? We have a set budget. We're tight for cash.
Well,
Are you going to be able to help us out?
I can't answer that question. You're above my pay grade now.
I'm just I'm putting out there that that's an issue.
No, I understand.
well, one thing I
No,
will
understand
say,
it's trespassing, but you got to be realistic. We're going to have trespassing no matter what.
What I can say is if there's issues, like I said, we're here to answer for specific questions tonight. If there are issues that we can't answer, the CCRTA is the overall project sponsor, I guess. And, there is a website, capeflyer.com. It has the schedule on it, so you'll know when the trains are coming through town. Specific times on weekends only, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I encourage you to, put your concerns relative to police reimbursement or not details. I don't know quite how you put it, but whatever you'd like, put that in writing to CCRTA. One thing that is important, especially relative to trespassing, and again, I know this from previous meetings, Steve and Tracy Kaufman are the two MBTA people who have been doing this safety assessment. They need to know where the trespassing is occurring so that they can add that to their report, because their report is being dished out to the various police departments to help them with enforcement.
Water side of Merchants Way,
This is,
all the way down, just short of Tremont, all the way back to the Narrows Bridge,
Mis-
on the Narrows Bridge, and just on the other side of the bridge.
So is it Waterside to Merchants Way? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
Merchants Way is the back street, backside of Wareham. You have Main Street, and the backside of the buildings is called Merchants Way,
Okay.
and that's where the train station is on Merchants Way. And if you cross the tracks, then you have that area that goes down to the water, and that's
Right.
where you have the population of people
I'm
there.
pretty sure they know about that one, but we'll relay.
I'm sure they do.
And then you said there was another area down around Cohasset Narrows?
No.
Okay.
just briefly, some of these issues were brought up last month at the informational meeting that
Yes.
was held here on, I think it was the 25th, yeah, Thursday the 25th. The policing issue was brought up. I know the town administrator from Rochester was particularly vociferous about the cost, and Mr. Sullivan, I think, basically stood up and said ditto and sat down again because he didn't have to say any more than that. But we did hear from the Mass Coastal Railway manager regarding any number, and I mean he was talking dozens upon dozens of no trespass orders that they had sought and issued so that people wouldn't be on the tracks during their operation of the trash trains, which I believe they run half a dozen a day, I think, is the number of trash trains that go back and forth.
I think it's two.
So this process has been going on of trying to keep people off the tracks. This is something that's been going on for a while. The big
Waiting
concern
for
with the new operation, again, is the speed. I was heartened to hear that they are setting a speed limit of 30 miles an hour basically from Elm Street down through the Narrows, as we call it.
It's 45. In other words, it's a gradual slowdown from
Yeah.
55. Around the explanation I'm being given, and I can't give you the exact points at this point. They're still working the track geometry out, but it's 40. It slows from 55 down to 45, basically somewhere right around that Elm Street curve and south of the Elm Street curve, and to transition down to 30. So basically, at the far end of the platform, and maybe like 500 feet up from it, will be where there'll be a permanence restriction for 30. That 30 carries through the platform, across the bridge, across the road crossing, and then out into the curve south, and it will resume speed somewhere between that and Indian Neck Road,
Right.
or Town Neck Road.
Yeah,
Indian
you'll
Neck
pick up
Road.
speed again along when it straightens out.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I'm heartened to hear that because initially we were told that there was some investigation into whether a slow order would be issued, and that was the thought coming out of the April 25th meeting. Subsequently, I read an interview somewhere, and again, I wasn't there to hear it, so it's not gospel truth to me, but the notion was that it was going to be left to engineers' discretion, and that did concern me a little bit through there. I mean, engineers are human. You know, you're running a couple minutes late for whatever reason, and you know, pushing something a little 10 miles an hour faster through something is let's put it this way. It's not unheard of.
I think the
So-
engineers that they were referring to were the track engineers that were working on determining what the speed. I don't think it's left to the discretion of the locomotive engineers.
Okay, good. I'm glad for that clarification.
Yeah, they're pretty strict about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. All right, so Alan's absolutely right. When you come through our station, okay, there's a platform.
Mhm.
People run across that platform all the time to get to the backside where they go crabbing. No question about it. Been doing that since the beginning of time in this town. All right? Now, there is no gates, there's no lights, there's no nothing to warn them except for down on the street. If they happen to hear those, that's not a problem. But kids don't tend to listen to that stuff. Kids don't tend to pay attention to those things. And this is a very concerning issue for me. You know, when they stopped in the old days, that was one thing. They stopped in the station. They slowed down. They came to a stop. You know, it's easy for the issues. No big deal. Now they're just going to go flying through there. I don't care if it's 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour, whatever it is. There are going to be people down there, especially in the summertime. You're absolutely right, Alan. That is an absolute must that people are going to do that. And I don't want to hear anything about, well, you know what, that's trespassing. Really? Well, people cross the tracks all the time. They're down at the cars cross over at the certain places. People walk across the tracks. This is a station. People walk through the station. That baloney, that doesn't go with me. That doesn't fly with me. Well, we'll just have more enforcement on the tracks. That doesn't work. One kid gets hurt out there. Okay, one. And that's a problem for me. It just is. I'm sorry, but it is a problem, but we need to try to address it. We have to come up with a solution. We can't just have trains running through a station. This is a station you're going to run through, not stop it. It's still a station. It's still a station. It's still wide open.
Let me just answer one question relative. There's a distinct difference between being at a grade crossing and not being at a grade crossing. A grade crossing is a established public way.
If you're going to tell me again right now, if you're going to tell me, sir, that it's trespassing to cross through that station, if that's what you're going to tell me, I don't want to hear it.
Well, let me answer it a different way. I know for a fact there are high rail trucks that are coming out this week with police, and who's ever caught on the right-of-way is going to be issued a $100 citation.
You think that that's the answer to this problem?
All I can tell you is it's private property, and
Do
the
you
people are
think that's
trespassing.
the answer
I
to this
can't answer it
problem
any
where
other way.
people have been crossing the tracks for years?
Selectman Slavin?
The point I was trying to make, which what we have is we have a crab fishery that is very strong
Yes.
because of the water conditions, whatever. The problem is, I'm going to say, and I hope people don't peg me to it, that at least 70% of the people, possibly more, are new immigrants to the area, coming from Southeast Asia, etc., where that particular type of fishery is important food source for themselves. And I don't care what you say or do, they don't understand they don't understand how we do things. They don't. The language is an issue, and as far as where they live, crossing train tracks to get somewhere never would stop them any at all. There's nothing there to stop those people from crossing the train, except police being there to stop it. So you have to understand, we have a unique situation on the other side of Merchants Way. It's not been decreasing over the last few years. It's been increasing because as the economy goes down, we have more and more people coming there for their own food supply.
Just briefly, one of the things that we are looking forward to, and this has come up in discussions with the CETA director, we are hopeful one day that the train will stop in Wareham, that we will have a platform that is handicap accessible and therefore complies with ADA requirements, and people can actually get on the train in Wareham and get to the Cape. Obviously, that's not something that's going to happen while this summer. I think that's not feasible. We're hoping in the future to do that. If and when that does occur, there is going to be a natural slowing of the train in that area. So to stop at the station. The other piece is We talk about people crossing the tracks. Yes, they do. However, I want to say when I was a kid, I walked the tracks all the time. When I heard a train, I got off the tracks. It was just, I didn't think I could take on a locomotive. And I think ultimately, people are going to have to get used to trains coming through there. To the extent that we have a crab fishery where we've got immigrants here who don't speak English, perhaps some signage in their native tongues would be helpful. I think we need to educate people that a train horn means something. It means get the hell off the tracks. Certainly they're going to be blowing the horn at the grade crossing, so they're going to have that warning. We need to educate as much as we can, but we can't sit here and say no train. That's not a feasible solution. It's not our call, number one. And number two, the responsible thing to do is on the town side to work with you to try to mitigate the potential impacts as much as we can.
I'm not against the train by any stretch of the imagination.
Neither one of us are.
I want to see it safely implemented.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Again, this is a train coming down a track. I ride on them all the time.
Yep.
We speed by train stations at, I don't even know what the Acela does at top speed. It does not slow down, Mr. Chairman, at most of those train stations. We go right by the train station. That's the whole point of the high-speed train. It stops and slows down when it needs to stop and pick people up and drop people off. If the town is so concerned about getting somebody to stop trespassers from being on private property, we're not going to get people to pay our police department to do that. It's really part of the job anyway. If you're trespassing and you get a complaint, you call the police. The easiest way to deal with this is to put up a fence. Now, you've blocked all access to that beautiful piece of our waterfront that we'd like. Instead of encouraging and being part of the solution, we tell them to make the train slow down. It's not going to happen. This is a rill. So either you teach people to come around from the other side of the Narrows, go through the lights, and come down into the water from the other side. Now we just talked about Tremont Nail and access to that water. Well, there's a train that goes by there. And we're going to have issues there too. You put up a fence to protect people. Mr. Trapiano's concerned about protecting people. Put up a fence, leading up to the thing and leading away from the train station so that people can't get in there. And then they can't walk out onto the platform unless you have the doors open. And then they truly are trespassing. And then if they do get hit by a train, you've got plenty of warning signs, you've got a fence, you've got signs do not trespass unless the door is open and let you onto the train like we do at Christmas and Thanksgiving and all that other stuff.
One other thing.
But that's the only way to protect that thing with oncoming trains is to put up a fence. It's very simple. An anchor fence.
I have one other thing to say.
Yes, go ahead.
With regards to the ongoing work that's been going on the tracks,
Sure.
Hathaway Road,
Yes.
okay, you guys did some work there and you repaved the thing and, did whatever.
Right.
And the bump is huge now
Yes.
compared to what it was. I mean, it used to be relatively simple to get across. Now it's huge.
That's being addressed.
It is going to be
Yes.
repaired. Thank you.
In order for the start to service occur, I'm working with the MassDOT pavement marking crews. I believe that's scheduled to be marked tomorrow. We've held off because we want to do something with that asphalt on, I guess it would be the east or north side.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's being looked at. We're waiting for quotes from the contractors to go in and fix that. So that is on our radar screen.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Sullivan had a question, and then Mrs. Slavin.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming, first of all. Yep. I'm guessing Kathy owes you lunch or dinner for coming along the way. But one of the questions I had, and again, it's the Merchants Way area behind the station that we've been addressing. I went down there with our municipal maintenance director, was walking along the line. I noticed that there had been brush cut back.
Yes.
And one of the concerns that I had was there's still a fair amount, and I'm only 6 feet tall, so it's along the curve. It's disrupting the line of sight, if you will. I'm sure the conductor's a little higher, but some of the people, if there's if there is trespassing back there and such, I think they might be hiding, so to say, in those trees. Somebody has I guess they don't have Walkman anymore, it's an iPad, listening to music. You know, they can walk right out of there, and I think that would also help our police be able to look through there and see if people are around, if sort of the rest of that was cleared out, if possible.
There were three sets of brush cutting that were done relative to safety with the start of this service. The first were what's called the railroad quadrants. So it's the northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest corners of the railroad property for sight distance for school buses and vehicles, etc. And those, the distance of those cuttings were very specific to what the speed was going to be, or relative speed was going to be on the line. It was either 500 or 1,000 feet from the crossing. The second type of cutting was what was called a right-of-way cutting. That was done only on the north side of Buzzards Bay Bridge, from 10 feet out from the center line, all the way up the railroad to Middleborough was cut. There's the Federal Railroad Administration who is the railroad police that polices the railroad and their operations. They require that no brush touch the side of any type of railroad cars. That's so that if there's someone riding on the side of a car, he can't be swiped off. So that's the second type of cutting that took place all the way up the line. The third type of cutting that took is I have actually gone and talked with Mark Gifford, as well as Glenn Barrow, I think is his highway superintendent, and you guys have been huge. If you haven't seen Hathaway lately, you ought to go take a drive, because one of the other requirements is that you must be able to see those lights, flashing lights and gates coming down the roadway. And the maintenance of that brush, the maintenance of the signs, and the maintenance of the street markings is technically the town's responsibility.
Yeah.
MassDOT and Mass Highway, in this particular case, because there was such short time frame, stepped up at least to do the signs and the pavement marking. So we went to the town and asked for help with the brush cutting. And if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go by and see it. It's fabulous. They did a wonderful job. So the sight distances relative to what the requirements are have been done. I know where you're talking about. I know the inside of that curve. I don't know off the top of my head what the MassDOT property lines are there.
Okay.
I can research what the MassDOT property lines. If you would like that cut, I would encourage you to put that in writing. And then I can at least, I'll make a note of it here as well, and I'll try to find out at least what the MassDOT ownership is through there.
Okay, should I send that to Kathy or?
You mean Tracy Kaufman?
Tracy, I'm
Yes.
calling Kathy, excuse
Yes,
me.
that's actually a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay. Selectman Slavin?
Just one, on that particular issue there, I think we talked with John Pearson, because I think you contracted with John from Mass Coastal to do some of the cuttings.
Yeah, the way all of the contracts for this project went is all, because the railroad is the operator and the maintainer, all contractors basically report to Mass Coastal. The state is the owner of the right-of-way. The consultants are out there to assist and help facilitate all the work, but all of the contractors work for the railroad.
Okay.
So that Mr. Pearson is one of the railroad officials.
Because we had talked about clearing off, for the vista view, because there was an issue, again, heading toward the bridge, where you're coming around because of the brush, they couldn't see very well. So they were talking about actually clearing all that brush and trees out on that section of Merchants Way. So it didn't actually all get done, so you may want to double check.
Is this the same section? that
Same
you're
area he's talking
So this
about.
is the area between the track and the water,
Yep,
if I get this right, between the track and the water on the inside of the curve,
to the water side,
from the bridge
back to the station.
north back to the station.
And I believe the railroad basically has the right to clear that brush there. They don't have to worry about Conservation Commission, et cetera, because of the federal rules. The other piece is that we were talking about, hopefully when Wareham does get a stop there, we've been talking to Mr. Pearson for a while, actually, it's been 3 years since we started, that there is a particular type of gate you can put up on the tracks, which is basically a crossing, which is, an automated control. where people could walk across and it'd be done with the railroad's permission, et cetera, where basically the gate would be down when the train's not there. When the train is approaching, you know, the gates would come down to lock it off.
I think you're talking about a gated pedestrian crossing.
Exactly.
Um,
Now, if we do
that-
something like that, are we going to run into any issues down the line? Because we're looking into that. That's why I'm asking the question.
That
now.
that's a complicated issue. That needs to be put in writing as well. MBTA safety will have to take a look at it. MassDOT will have to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
They don't like to add more crossings. They like to get rid of them.
We're trying to develop the
No,
other
I
side of
understand.
the
No, I
water,
understand
so-
what you're trying to do. Like I said, we're here to try to answer questions. I apologize. I'm not able to make promises. If I could, I'd come with a big red sack and.
Oh, I know.
But
Santa
anything,
Claus isn't coming
the way the process works is anything that the town wants, get it in writing, get it to Tracy's fine. Tracy will forward it on to who it needs to be. I've got it noted as well.
Yeah. I would suggest for the town administrator to have Mr. Pina give a copy of a potential Merchants Way development which shows a boardwalk along the water. That's why we have concerns, because that means there would be pedestrians with a controlled access crossing.
A boardwalk along you mean right where the brush needs to be cut?
Below that.
Okay, so is there a piece of property that's not MassDOT's between the track and the water?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also to address Mr. Tropiano's concerns, on top of the assessments that Tracy and I have been doing out there, we have been doing a lot of public outreach. We've had Operation Lifesaver down here going to several of the schools along the railway. We have been bringing down these pamphlets that are going out with the students to bring home so that their parents also know it. Some of the school systems are actually sending out emails to parents. So and then I think as well we're putting these flyers in a lot of the local businesses like Walmart and things like that, so that when people go into the stores that aren't from the area, they'll see them there. So we are doing some public outreach as well.
Is there anything else, gentlemen? Well, thank you for your time and patience tonight.
Hope the system works for us.
Yep. And we look
hope
forward.
so too.
We look forward to the train stopping in Wareham next year. And I know you still don't have your red sack, so you can't promise that.
No.
but
I listen.
You'll be hearing from our CETA director quite a bit on that score, I think.
I'm all for passenger service. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you again. Selectman Slavin?
On this whole issue, if we could ask the town administrator to check with our police chief, Mr. Stanley, and find out if he's been informed of what extra duties he may or may not have to do, so we have some idea whether we can accomplish what might be required. Be nice. Well, yeah. They've never patrolled the police tracks and never done anything else. Nobody's ever been pulled off the track saying they're trespassing.
Next item, please.
Okay. Discussion and guidance to the town administrator for the next year. This would be if we have any issues that we have to discuss with them.
Personally can't think of anything. Anybody else? Next item, please.
Okay. Vote on fiscal year 14 budget. I think that actually corresponds out and really locks into item H, which is just a revote of Articles 6 and 9, which were changed from what we originally voted on previously, because those two articles have changed number-wise. This will be the second vote, I think, on that particular, on those two. We voted once before, based on what the town administrator had supplied us, and the numbers have changed since then quite a bit, as far as the shortfall.
Are you looking at the
That's the
special? This would be on the regular town meeting warrant.
This, you don't have it there. This is just the regular town meeting warrant. I don't think we were not supplied in our packet, Articles 6 and 9.
I brought mine along if... Article 6, I'll read it. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for a reserve fund for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2013, and ending June 30th, 2014, and as more particularly described in the report of the Wareham Finance Committee, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. And then the explanation says, this article authorizes the approval of the town budget for fiscal year 14. So that's Article 6. Article 9 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to the EMS salaries and wages account, EMS general expense account, still further to authorize a sum of money in estimated receipts of the EMS to be used to offset said appropriation in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. That's a separate budget item, but it's part of the budget. So that's why these two were listed on here. Mr. Sullivan, if you'd like to weigh in here.
Can actually, for the EMS article, to describe, I'd like to hand these out. What those are just examples of what a 3 and 4 year lease for an EMS ambulance would be. But that's part of the increase of the
Oh, okay, got it.
of the EMS. This is sort of a two-part issue. In the special, we're going to ask for, because it's a capital item, and by charter, you need to ask permission to purchase the capital item. So that's what we'll be seeking for in the special town meeting. As part of the annual town meeting, we have increased the EMS budget, and it'll be a capital line on there. Traditionally, you only see wages and expenses. There'll be a third line called capital, and this is for the offset receipt, and it would be $80,000. The purpose for this is, if you see on the first lease for 3 years, for a $220,000 ambulance at 2.29% interest, you have a payment that's a little over $76,000. We'll put aside $80,000 for any fluctuations on there, in there, and basically what this does is it increases the cost to the offset receipt, but it doesn't do any changes within the general budget. The EMS service is run as an offset receipt, so whatever revenue is brought in is used to offset its budget. Whatever extra revenue there is then flows into the general fund, which flows towards free cash. So essentially, all we would be doing is increasing their budget, and it would mean $80,000 less dollars would flow to free cash. They're projected to earn in fiscal 13, and actually earn not just bill, approximately $1.14 million. And that is the reason for the change to their budget.
Any questions?
Just one quick thing. This basically puts a line item in which you had mentioned before when we talked about the police cruises. So we're actually implementing your basic thought. I just want to let you know that. That's not, we do listen.
I'm there. I know what's going on. Trust me.
Second. Favorable action. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0.
We need to make sure that we have that available for town meeting because our vote will be different from the last time.
That's correct. That would be
Is the actual budget.
the actual budget. We need a motion on that because I don't think we voted that.
Second.
Anything else? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0 again. And again, Mr. Clerk, if you will bring those votes with you to town meeting to read into the record. Thank you.
Next item will be the special town meeting warrant. We have not voted on the articles there.
Since this is essentially,
Town administrator requests. on the
yes,
lease.
Mr. Sullivan's production here, perhaps we could have him speak to each briefly as an explanation and then do a vote immediately after the explanation for each article.
Thank
And
you.
again, the votes are going to be for favorable action.
Article 1 would be for budget transfers. We don't have the list now, so I don't know if you can You won't have that list till probably right beforehand, as
Yeah,
we're
we
trying
have
to
to
project the
hold
last
off on
of
that
it.
until we see the
Yeah,
list.
so I wouldn't ask for a vote on that. Number 2 is for police cruisers.
Could vote to abstain.
Yeah, just want to see the list. We'll vote at the last minute if we have to, so we go in there with something, but.
Yeah, we can actually vote on, we'll notice a meeting for the 18th of June and vote then if we have
We're
to.
gonna do that anyway, so.
Yeah,
We'll
so
do it right
we
then
need
and
to see
there,
the
and that
numbers
way
before we
can see
vote.
the list. I mean,
Fine.
we
Yep.
have to know what we're transferring here. It's not giving blanket coverage,
No, that's why I said that. That's why you
All
did-
right, Derek, it's all yours. Go to town.
Yeah, trust but verify. Thank you.
Article 2 is the police cruisers article. I am getting quotes from the chief of police. What he is asking for currently are 3 cruisers and 2 supervisor vehicles. Supervisor vehicles are what the shift sergeants use, or the shift supervisors, which are usually the sergeants, use. The questions are, do they take those vehicles home? No, they stay, and their run would be around the clock. We lost one of our shift supervisor vehicles, a Ford Explorer, or that might have even been Expedition SUV that was wrecked in a car accident. We did not have replacement costs because of the age, and we received actual cash value. So the request coming in is for a total of 5 vehicles, 3 cruisers, 2 shift supervisors. The estimated cost is $200,000. That is including an estimated $20,000 worth of trade-ins. So the total cost would be about $220,000. Again, I'm asking from the chief to make sure that he has quotes on this so that everybody. The money would be coming from the stabilization fund is what we'd request. It is one of the allowable uses, and this is also going to be part of the TA report. I'm going to ask this board to help me address a policy as to how we use free cash, because I don't believe we can fund the stabilization fund from our operating budget anymore, and that the correct way would be to use the free cash and
Absolutely.
set aside at least X amount to that.
We used to do it.
Yeah.
Question I have about this is that what kind of police cruisers are we gonna buy? I'm a little concerned about that because the last ones didn't hold up very well, and they spent more time in the shop than they actually did on the street, it seems.
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned about that, and I want to know that we're going to get a police cruiser that's going to work.
I would think, knowing the history of the gentleman in charge, he likes to keep with the same equipment, to have standardized equipment. What I can ask is that we look into several different vehicles to get quotes on there. But I believe they're Chargers right now.
Right, they're Chargers, and they've
Yeah.
been awful.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have. I mean, they're constantly in the shop. They're constantly being worked on. A lot of times they're running some of the old cruisers because those are down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the old cruisers run better. Some of the old ones, there's one running around there that has no paint on it, that's missing paint all over it, that they run as a spare or an emergency vehicle, when they need it. And it's still running, but the other ones can't stay running. And I don't
Selectman
care
Holmes?
if you want them to look all the same or not. I want them to run.
Yeah, listen, I agree with Patrick here. This meeting is on June 18th. Correct? Today is May 20th or 21st, whatever it is. Don't we have time for people to come and tell us what this is about? I mean, if you're looking for cruisers, isn't the chief going to come in here or one of his lieutenants and tell us, here's what we're looking to buy for $200,000, or are we not bothering?
No,
We typically will have somebody come in and give a presentation on what these articles
I
are
want to know
about.
what they're going to buy for vehicles, because I'll tell you right now, if they're going to buy the same vehicles that have been the problems, I'm not voting in favor
I mean,
of
other
that.
than union
Just
issues,
not doing it.
which is mostly housekeeping, usually if somebody wants something, they come in and talk about it here, and then we vote. Hey, good idea, bad idea. Town meeting ultimately decides. I understand that.
Well, if you'd like to put these off,
But
and
absent
I have no
that, I mean, you can have favorable action all you want. It doesn't really matter. But if
well,
we
I have no problem putting these off. If you're
Well, there's
requesting
no-
the department head to come in and justify the purchases, I've got no
there's
problem
just
with
no
that.
information here, just so none of these questions are being answered.
Durability, I mean, nothing is a big thing for me.
That's
Why don't
all. That's all I'm saying to you. I don't see any, there's no backup here.
Is there a consensus to hold the vote on this until we have more information?
Yes.
I would agree
Okay.
with that. And is this ambulance purchase the same as the one we just did? Or is this in addition to that one, and in addition to the Walmart? Is this like a third ambulance?
No, this is in the special town meeting, we need to receive the permission to purchase an ambulance because it's a capital item.
What was the one we just did?
That is the actual purchase. This is to seek the permission to purchase it.
One's funding it, the
Right.
other is getting permission to do it.
By our charter, we have to receive permission to do it.
Right.
So even if we budgeted it, we could not purchase it until we had the permission.
Right, exactly.
All right, so Article 3, I'd move favorable action.
Second.
Okay, motion by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Slavin. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400.
Articles 4 through 12 are collective bargaining placeholders. And
And this money is in the budget. You already got this taken care of, if I remember correctly, right?
for the EMS,
For these
4 through
articles.
12.
yeah, there's currently, there's nothing that's been brought before you to fund at this time.
Exactly.
So,
these are just housekeeping
placeholders.
articles.
All right, favorable action, 4 through 12.
There you
Second.
go.
Motion made by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Slavin. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400. Favorable action. 4 through 12.
Article 13.
Article 13 is to purchase cover for water pollution control facility equalization tank. I know Mr. Campina has spoken to us on this. This is last fall, I believe it came before
Yeah.
the board for $400,000 for a specific form of odor mitigation, and he's seeking to choose a different method.
I would ask, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we hold this. When is Mrs. Whiteside coming back? Is she back before this meeting?
She's back
back-
before the 18th, that's
She's
correct.
back on the 5th.
Can we have ask Mr. Campini to come on that night? Because I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think he's been in since April on this. It'd be nice to have a fresh update before we go
Yeah.
to the meeting.
Hold.
So hold Article 13.
I would hold.
Article 14.
I'm going to guess that will be a hold as well with the easement.
I believe there's an issue that is going to cross under a state road.
Yeah, there's going to be probably a couple things on this, so I would ask.
Yeah, this is
Mr.
definitely a
Campina.
hold.
Article
On which
f-
one, 14?
This is 14.
Yeah.
There's a couple issues. Article 15, I can address that one. It's done by a private citizen. We've had an issue with Rock Marsh Road being accepted by the town. The agreement with the, I think it's the condo association members, that if the road is fully completed and accepted as far as municipal maintenance with all meets, bounds, et cetera, then the article will be brought forward. If everything is not in place by town meeting, it will not be brought forward to be
So we'll
pulled.
wait for this too.
So there really doesn't require anything here because
I
this is.
thought I read an email today
Not a
from this guy
problem.
pulling it back and
He's
not
pulled-
asking permission
he's pulled
until
it-
it's finished.
Well, the idea is
Right.
if they may get it done in time. If they do, then they'll.
Before
pull it back.
June 18th?
Yeah, they might.
Ah.
If not,
Well,
it'll be fall town.
Why don't we put a hold on it until such time as we know more about this?
Right,
All right,
same thing.
works for me.
We got plenty of time yet.
Okay. To go back to Mr. Tropiano's and Mr. Holmes's issue on the police cruisers, just so everybody understands, Chevrolet does make a specialized rear-wheel drive police cruiser that they don't sell to the public right now. There is a model called an Impala SS, I think actually a Chevy SS, that just came
Rear-wheel
out.
drive?
Rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, and Ford does the same thing.
Yeah, but this has just come out in the last
I like that.
3 months, and they're making a police cruiser version of that. And the other thing I noticed, a lot of communities are using a Ford, I don't know the model name, but it's,
An SHO is what it's called, a super
No.
high output tourist platform, or is this
No.
a different one?
that's, no. This is an
I had a
SUV,
93 SHO.
which is basically, it's one of the newer models that's, it's not an Explorer, but there's a particular model, and they're using them because you can get them all-wheel drive, whatever. For communities like ourselves and others, it's a more useful vehicle all around, and they're also built to not a higher standard, but a more heavy-duty use, so therefore they last a lot longer. And they run V6 motors with, I think, what Peter mentioned, SHO, they call it EcoBoost, whatever it is, but they actually are a high output motor, but they're a V6, so they're less expensive to run.
Are these
You know, it-
SUV format or? is
Yeah,
it-
I just was in Carver today on the way through, and Carver's running a brand new one. I'm
You're
seeing
gonna
it.
have
to- Yeah,
I'm
they-
seeing them everywhere. And
they-
they're not supervisor vehicles. Actually, the policemen are actually using them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look. There's several companies that make specific vehicles for police use.
Yeah, they make a
And-
police version of this.
And right, and they're typically are, well, typically they used Fords over the years because Ford had the best program in the world for that,
They're indestructible.
and
too.
they were indestructible. I mean, we still have some of them running right now. That I'm telling you, they have no paint on them. I see them go down the street. The paint's gone, but the cars are still running. And it's just something we've got to pay attention to this time. And I don't care if they don't match the other cruisers or not. You know what? It's not about matching. It's about making sure we have policemen who can show up on the spot when we need one. That's what it's about. You know, it's better than them have to, can you get me a taxi? I got to get to the site over here. My car's broken down. You know, this is not, this is the most important thing, that they're there where they need to be when they need to be there. What they look like when they get there, we're okay with that.
One other thing on these warrant articles is also the Kelly upstairs in the planning office who does takes care of the printing for the finance committee. There is a set date when they have to print the warrant, so he
Right.
basically, there will be certain items on they
Yeah,
will not
we-
have a selectman's vote, that's
But
all.
we'll just say it on the floor, and that's,
I
you
just
know.
want to know, so they don't panic and think we've made
Yeah,
life
I mean,
difficult.
we'll do what we can do, and that's it. I mean,
That's it.
we have to make sure, you know, we're here to do a job, and we gotta get the job done.
Okay, we're all set with this, I guess.
61, vote on 61B land conversion, Bourne Point.
Yes. Come on down.
Come on up, gentlemen. Introduce yourself, please,
I've got
for the record.
Good evening, gentlemen. Jan Wolverton, representing Jacob Elkins, the petitioner and owner.
Jake Elkins, owner with my sister of that lot.
We've basically, we're waiting, we have up to 120 days, but we're trying to expedite this as best as possible. The selectmen has its own set of policies, with a 30-day window where we notify there's 3 different boards that have to come back with an answer to us. Plus, this would have gone to the planning board, to conservation as well. And we have answers back from everybody. I think we have one group, it's past the 30 days, they didn't answer, so we have everything in place now.
I think I owe you a affidavit of notice with green cards.
Yes.
Well, this is just a formality here. Anything on the question, or
Any
ready for a
questions?
motion?
Yep.
I make a motion that the town of Wareham does not exercise its right under 61B.
Second. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Congratulations, you're all set.
Sorry to keep you so long.
Thank you.
Just a minute, please.
Was that for both?
No, it's just one. I have
This
one
is
more.
Charlotte Furnace
I have
Road.
one more.
One more.
I just want to make a note that this paperwork has to go, I think, to the planning board. Make sure they don't forget and gets lost. Okay. Get another piece of paper here? Next will be the Charlotte Furnace AD Makepeace, Chapter 61A, land coming out of agriculture. Again, we've got answers back from everybody that could. We have a couple that did not make the 30-day window due to quorum issues, et cetera, but therefore we can move ahead. It falls within our policy.
Well, without any discussion, may we have a motion?
Make a motion to go ahead and not exercise our option under Chapter 61A on the property from AD Makepeace on Charlotte Furnace Road.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0.
I lost my other part. Okay. Next, Employee Appreciation Cookout. We did one last year, as Mr. Holmes remembers, for the volunteers. And we talked about doing one actually for the employees, but we never got to do it last fall.
It was a party without the alcohol.
Yes, it was. I cooked and didn't burn my hands, which wasn't bad. And
Thinking of doing this all together as one?
no, two separate ones. I thought we'd do one, this one here, the idea was to do it right outside of the cafeteria with the grass there and the trees and the bench there. We could have in case the weather is bad.
Here?
Yeah, down over there. That way all the employees, you can have a lunch for them, they can all come down and eat. And I picked the date of June 14th, a couple weeks ago, just to temporarily throw it in. I'm not sure if that's gonna be too tight for us or not.
I mean, during the day?
During the day. Try and do it like on a Friday.
Well, it just doesn't seem like a lot of fun.
Sure it is.
Taking people out of their job that we're paying them to do. What if we did it like?
It's a lunch.
What if we did it like we did the last one, like say 4:30, 5 o'clock, and invite their families?
We could, but I'm trying to keep it, as far as having to haul a big tent and everything down to Bessie Park again, that's all.
Well, no, we could still do it here.
We can do that.
I'm thinking, an hour. I mean, what fun is that? The families give up enough, right? What if we had it like on a Friday afternoon and invite the husbands and the kids, as long as they RSVP? I mean, come on, we're talking hot dogs, hamburgers, right? Same thing? Cookout?
Same idea.
Linguiça, don't forget the linguiça.
Linguiça?
Linguiça.
Yeah.
Clam chowder.
Why not?
I just think it'd be a lot easier to do it here though, because that way we're not straining.
Oh, no, we could still do it here, right?
Like I say, if we get a bad weather.
We're not using the building. so we
Exactly,
don't
the
have
other
to
piece
pay
is,
for that.
go right into the calf if we have bad weather too.
Yeah.
You
We
wanna
can
stay
still
with
cook outside.
You wanna stay with the date of the 14th, that's Friday night?
What is it?
14th of June?
Oh, who picked the date? Oh, you have a date already?
I put
That's
a date
only
down
3
just in
weeks.
case, yeah, that's the problem, it's only 3.
No, just 14th or the 21st?
14th would be the weekend before Father's Day. Father's Day's the 16th Sunday.
Yeah, if you give us another week till the 21st, we'll have opportunities.
Whatever you want. I should have
It's
got this,
before the 4th of July.
yeah, I apologize, I should have got this to the board 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Patrick, when is the schedule done out the park? By the 21st, they're done, right? Except for the
17th.
playoffs?
I think we're done at the 17th, we start playoffs.
Yeah. See? Then we don't have to run into parents with kids at the park.
Well,
If
they
there's-
start,
Yeah, the 21st, I think the 21st would give us another week to. And there there's no kids really playing ball, right?
That's fine.
I think that
Pick a
works
date and
out
go
well
with it.
on a Friday night. Friday afternoon.
so we'll make a motion to have Judy in charge?
Huh?
So make a motion to have Judy in charge.
Judy in charge?
No, I wouldn't do that. No, listen, hey, when it comes
That's
to
what
cooking-
happens when you don't show up to meetings.
Hey, when it comes to cooking, I don't have a problem. I can do that.
We did that before.
But the big key, Mr. Sullivan, is gonna be, if we do that, and I think that'd be much better, maybe we can get a little volunteer entertainment. But the big thing to push with the department heads and the people are gonna be RSVP.
Yeah.
We have to know how many people are coming.
And so we'll invite.
We had a great one down the park last year, I mean, that
Yeah.
was really good, but we could do it right here. This is beautiful here too. Yeah?
Okay.
And I know she's an employee that we're trying to thank, but Suzanne Burke is amazing on planning, so.
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're gonna be careful with that.
Yes.
I worked with her.
Yeah, we're gonna be careful.
Yeah.
I know a couple other ladies who do some excellent cooking. We're gonna have to get Patrick to schmooze him a little bit. The two ladies who work in the hut there, I forget their names. Outstanding chefs. And if he has no games that night, they may be available to help.
This will be paid for by the selectmen, of course, not from our budget individually, which is less than $50 each.
Yeah, we got off pretty cheap
So we
last
don't
year.
violate the laws.
A lot of donated materials and.
Well, yeah, okay, that works. So we're gonna say, you wanna check that with the group, or you just wanna pick the 21st?
Well,
At what time do they get off? 4 o'clock?
4:30.
4:30.
So we'll call it 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock.
Invite your,
Yeah.
whatever?
5 to 7 or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, 5 till whenever,
Yeah.
but we'll serve at 5:30, 6 o'clock?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's the longest day of the year. So.
just about.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's one of the longest days of the year for sunlight.
Sunlight, 30.
And it's a Friday night, June 21st.
We'll have the press help us.
That works. It'd be a lot of fun.
I don't think we need to vote on that.
No,
No,
you don't need any vote.
Okay,
so it shall be.
thank you all, appreciate it.
Next.
Any town business not anticipated 48 hours prior to the posting of this meeting?
Well, while you're at that, excuse me, while you're at it, do you have an idea for the boards?
The board's probably
Because
will,
they're coming up the end of June, right?
they come up the end of June, come back in July, so probably, I think either August or September.
When did we do the last one? It was warm, I remember that. Was it in the beginning of the summer or the end? I think it was in
It was the
the beginning.
beginning.
June.
It was in June.
Okay. All right, so we'll do them like in August, July, August, better August.
Yeah.
All
right.
We'll work on that and come back with a date
Yep.
All
in
right.
a couple weeks, see what we got.
Yeah, but don't put them too close together because I only get so much allowance.
I'll give you your refills, you'll be all set.
All RSVPs in by the 14th. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
send something out to everybody.
Yeah, listen, hey, you give them the date, they got to know, they'll know right away whether they're going or not.
Mhm.
And then they can put it through. Yeah, we need to know it. We don't want to, right.
Okay, 24-hour business.
Done.
Anybody? No.
24 hour, any 48 hours? Anybody?
I think
Patrick?
we've heard enough from
Nothing.
him tonight.
No, we haven't.
Nothing.
Mr. Holmes?
I'm ready to go home.
I'm fine.
It's 9:30.
Well,
Starting to get punchy.
Mr. Sullivan's report, I guess.
If you remember, a couple months back, maybe a little longer than that, we had some folks in from Swiss Beach. They had rocks that were being thrown, and we met with Miss Polari and her husband, the chief of police, Lieutenant Walsh, Mark Gifford, and myself. And what came from that was adding additional lighting to the beach parking area for security. And, we've shown some of the patrols that were happening. And, we really worked with them to make sure that security in the area was helped. And every now and again, you receive the thanks for something. I just wanted to read off the letter that I received from Miss Jan Polari. And it starts off, Dear Chief Stanley, Derek, and Mark, and the email to you regarding the additional lighting in the beach parking lots at Swiss Neck Beach, as well as the continuous police presence in and around the neighborhood. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all so very much for helping our neighborhood. The parking lighting is fantastic. We are constantly seeing police cars patrolling the neighborhood. Tom and I are currently in the process of putting a lamppost in our yard, so the street area has some additional lighting as well. They're helping out for the situation, doing their part as well. And, they're going to be down at their home for a regular basis and are going to keep us updated through the summer months. But really, they said again, Chief Stanley, Derek, and Mark, your assistance with the additional lighting police patrols have been greatly appreciated. And in speaking with them, they said, yeah, if things come up, they know to speak directly to the police department and make sure things get addressed quickly on it. So I appreciate them taking the time to write to us and let us know that they appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that. I'd like to thank Selectman Holmes. This came up under his chairmanship, and I believe it might have even been an agenda item, if I remember correctly. I don't know if did they come forward during citizens' participation? It was quite a presentation, and out of that, I think came some pretty good direction and some really good follow-up by the police department and by town administrator. So it's nice to hear a problem resolved.
And the last additional part was in December we had received information from the governor's office that the state revenues were facing a roughly $500 million shortfall. We now received an update that as of April, the state is $510 million or $500 million above the benchmark. revenues. So they're going to restore funding to programs that will bring some money back into the schools. 11.5 million will be added to the special education circuit breaker reimbursement, bringing the total back to 242 million. There's the McKinney-Vento law. They're going to fund that back by 5.25 million to the original 11.3 million. That represents approximately $70,000 to the town. So we'll be receiving those funds back that were cut mid-year. So it's, you know, there's some signs of life. So, and I'll leave on the good note.
None for me.
Nothing. All in favor? 400. Have a good night.